The receipt slipped from Carl's worn wallet like a confession falling from guilty lips. Sunset Motel, $89. Dorothy's hands trembled as she checked the date. Last Saturday, when she'd worked a double shift at Walmart. 28 years of marriage crumbling over an $89 piece of paper. She stood frozen in their cramped trailer kitchen, the fluorescent light humming overhead, casting harsh shadows across the faded linoleum. Carl's wallet had fallen from his jeans when she'd gathered laundry, the same jeans he'd sworn he'd worn to his doctor's appointment. But the receipt told a different story. Room 247, paid in cash at 2:47 p.m. Dorothy's first instinct was denial. Maybe he'd helped someone out. Maybe there was an explanation. But as she reached to put the wallet back, another piece of paper caught her eye. Bella Beauty Supply, $127.49. The items listed made her stomach turn. Hair extensions, expensive perfume, red lipstick, nothing Carl would buy for her. She hadn't worn lipstick in 5 years, couldn't afford it on $11 an hour. The trailer door creaked. Carl's heavy footsteps approached, that familiar limp from his back injury more pronounced in the evening. Dorothy quickly stuffed the receipts in her apron pocket and turned to the stove, stirring the pot of beans she'd started earlier. "Smells good," Carl grunted, dropping into his recliner with a groan. The chair protested under his weight, springs squeaking. "Brittany around?" Brittany, their niece. 24 years old, been living in their spare room for 6 months now, said she needed a place while studying for her beautician license after things went bad with her daddy, Carl's brother Billy. Sweet girl, always offering to help around the trailer, always smiling at Carl's old trucker stories. "She's at her evening class," Dorothy said, her voice steady despite the churning in her stomach. She kept her back to him, afraid her face would betray what she'd discovered. "That girl works hard," Carl said, and Dorothy heard something in his voice she'd never noticed before, a softness, an affection that made her grip the wooden spoon tighter. "Not like some of these young folks today." Dorothy's mind raced. The beauty supplies, Brittany's new hair, suddenly longer and shinier last week. The perfume Dorothy had smelled on Carl's shirt, dismissed as something from a customer at the auto parts store where he supposedly did under-the-table inventory work when his back allowed. "Your appointment go okay?" she asked, testing. "Same old. Doc says the nerves are still compressed. Might need to up my pain meds." The recliner creaked as he shifted. Ran into Jim Hawkins afterward, had coffee at that diner on Highway 31. Lies flowed from his mouth, smooth as honey. Dorothy had called Dr. Morrison's office that morning about Carl's insurance paperwork. The receptionist said he hadn't been in since August. She served dinner in silence, watching Carl eat the beans and cornbread she'd made, his jaw working methodically. 50 pounds heavier than when they'd married, gray stubble on his chin, that paunch hanging over his belt. What did a 24-year-old see in him? But Dorothy knew. She'd seen their bank statements. Carl had been withdrawing more than usual. Cash only. Brittany needed things for school, he'd said. Family helps family. "You're quiet tonight," Carl observed, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. "Long day." Cheryl called in sick again, so I covered electronics and grocery. Dorothy picked at her own food, appetite gone. "My feet are killing me." "Maybe you should retire. We could manage on my disability." Another lie. They barely managed now, with her working 50 hours a week. Her sister Maggie needed treatment up in Nashville, real cancer doctors, not the clinic here that just pushed pain pills. Dorothy had been saving secretly, 20 here, 30 there, hidden in an old Folgers can behind the flour. $3,200. It would get Maggie started. The front door opened, and Brittany breezed in, bringing the scent of hairspray and that same perfume. Angel. Dorothy recognized it now from the beauty supply receipt. Expensive. The girl's hair gleamed under the kitchen light, fresh golden highlights that must have cost more than Dorothy made in a day. "Hi, Aunt Dot." "Uncle Carl." Brittany's voice was bright, musical. She wore tight jeans and a low-cut pink sweater that showed off her figure. Young, everything in the right place, everything Dorothy hadn't been in 15 years. "How was class, honey?" Carl asked. And there it was again. that softness, his eyes following Brittany as she moved to the refrigerator. "Great! We learned about color theory today. Did you know that red lipstick has psychological effects? Makes people appear more confident and attractive?" Brittany pulled out a Diet Coke, her movements graceful, deliberate. "I've been practicing on myself." Dorothy noticed it then. The perfect red lips. The same shade listed on that receipt. MAC Ruby Woo. $78. More than Dorothy spent on groceries for a week. "Looks real nice," Carl said, his gaze lingering. Dorothy watched his eyes track down Brittany's body, saw the girl notice and smile, a private little smile like they shared a secret. "I saved you some dinner," Dorothy said, her voice sounding strange to her own ears. "Oh, I grabbed something after class. Tommy Brennan was there. You know, from high school? He asked me out again." Brittany laughed, a tinkling sound, as if I'd date someone my own age. "Boys are so immature." She said it looking straight at Carl, and Dorothy saw him shift in his recliner, a pleased expression crossing his face. The moment hung between them, electric and obvious, and Dorothy realized she wasn't imagining things. This was happening, right in front of her, in her own home. "I need some air," Dorothy said abruptly, standing. "Think I'll sit on the porch for a bit." Outside, the October evening was crisp. She could hear the Johnsons' television through their trailer's thin walls, smell cigarette smoke from the Petersons' lot. The receipts burned in her pocket like evidence of a crime. 28 years, 3 miscarriages, standing by Carl through his injury, his depression, his drinking phase, working doubles to pay for his medications while her own teeth rotted because they couldn't afford dental. She pulled out her phone, fingers hovering over her sister's number. Maggie would tell her to pray about it, to forgive, that marriage was sacred. But Maggie didn't know what it was like to find out your husband was screwing your niece, your brother-in-law's daughter, the girl you'd fed at your table, given a roof when her own daddy kicked her out for dropping out of college. Through the window, Dorothy watched Carl struggle up from his recliner, his back apparently fine now, and move toward Brittany in the kitchen. Watched him touch her waist as he reached around her for something in the cupboard. Watched Brittany lean back against him, just for a moment, before pulling away with a laugh. Dorothy's hands clenched into fists, the receipts crinkled in her pocket. Sunset Motel. Room 247, last Saturday while she'd been scanning groceries, feet swelling in her worn shoes, smiling at customers who treated her like furniture. "Did you find everything you needed today?" she'd asked over and over, while her husband was finding everything he needed in their 24-year-old niece. She stayed on the porch until the air got too cold, until she heard Brittany's door close and Carl's snoring from their bedroom. Then she went inside, moving quietly through the dark trailer to the kitchen. She pulled out the receipts again, smoothing them on the counter. Evidence. But evidence of what, exactly? Alabama was a no-fault divorce state. She'd get half of nothing. Carl would keep his disability. She'd keep working at Walmart until she dropped dead on the floor. Unless... Dorothy opened her laptop, an ancient thing she'd bought at a pawn shop. She typed slowly, searching. Disability fraud. What counted. What the penalties were. Carl had been working under the table for years. She knew that. Cash jobs his buddy Steve threw his way. But he was careful. Nothing traceable. Or so he thought. She searched more. Alabama age of consent, familial relationships. Brittany was 24, so nothing illegal there. But Billy? Billy had a temper like a rattlesnake. Billy, who'd kicked Brittany out for less than this. Billy, who still blamed Carl for that construction accident 10 years ago that had cost him his foremanship. Dorothy closed the laptop and sat in the dark, mind working. She thought about the Folgers can with Maggie's treatment money, about the credit cards in Carl's name she could access, about Steve's auto shop and the cash jobs Carl did that the government didn't know about Brittany's beauty school, how they had moral conduct clauses, especially for people who'd be working with the public. From the bedroom, Carl coughed in his sleep. He'd been having digestive issues lately, blamed it on Dorothy's cooking, said she was using too much spice. But Dorothy hadn't changed a thing about her cooking. Not yet. She stood, bones aching from the long shift, and moved to the bathroom. In the medicine cabinet, behind the aspirin and antacids, Carl's prescription bottles lined up like soldiers. Oxycodone, gabapentin, cyclobenzaprine, all legally prescribed, all carefully monitored. But there were other things in this trailer. Rat poison under the sink, antifreeze in the garage, Brittany's hair bleach, which had warnings all over it about ingestion. Dorothy wasn't that kind of person. She'd never hurt anyone, not really, but standing there in the harsh bathroom light, catching her reflection, gray roots showing, lines around her eyes, face puffy from exhaustion, she understood how someone could become that kind of person, how betrayal could change you at a cellular level, make you into someone you didn't recognize. She took 2 aspirin and went to bed, lying beside Carl's snoring bulk. He smelled wrong. Not like himself anymore, but like perfume and motel soap and sex. In the darkness, she could hear sounds from Brittany's room. The girl was on the phone, giggling. "No, I can't talk about it now," she whispered. "I'll tell you tomorrow." "But oh my God, you won't believe it." Dorothy stared at the ceiling, receipts still in her pocket. Tomorrow was Wednesday. She had the early shift. Carl had another doctor's appointment. Brittany had a gap between classes from noon to 3. Dorothy knew their schedules by heart, had arranged her own work schedule to help them both. Stupid. She'd been so stupid. But not anymore. At 4 a.m., her alarm went off. Carl didn't stir as she dressed in her Walmart uniform, navy blue polo with her name tag, "Dorothy, happy to help." She made coffee, black, and sat at the kitchen table with the receipts spread before her. In the pre-dawn darkness, she made a decision. She wouldn't confront them, not yet. Confrontation would lead to denial, to Carl's practiced lies, to Brittany's wide-eyed innocence act. No, Dorothy would wait. She would watch. She would gather more evidence. And then, when the time was right, she would destroy them both. Not physically. She wasn't that kind of person. But there were other ways to hurt someone, ways that were perfectly legal, ways that would leave them alive but ruined. She folded the receipts carefully and put them back in her pocket. Then she wrote a note for Carl. "Gone to work. Leftovers in fridge. Love you." The love you was important. Keep everything normal. Let them think she was still the stupid, trusting wife, the dumb woman who worked herself to death while they fucked in cheap motels. As she drove to work in her beat-up Honda, the sun just starting to lighten the sky, Dorothy thought about her mother, dead 5 years now. "Men are weak," her mother had told her once, after Daddy had run off with that waitress from Tuscaloosa. But women are patient, and patience always wins in the end. Dorothy had thought it was just bitter talk from an abandoned woman. Now she understood it was a survival guide. She parked in the Walmart lot, watching her co-workers trudge in for the early shift. Decent people, most of them, working hard for nothing much. She thought about Cheryl, who'd called in sick yesterday but had really been at her son's court date. About Marcus, who worked 3 jobs to pay for his daughter's insulin. About Linda, 73 years old, greeting customers with arthritis so bad she could barely wave. This was her world. These were her people. And Carl. Carl had betrayed not just her, but everything they'd built together, however modest. For what? For a firm ass and perky tits? For feeling like a big man with a young girl on his arm? "Morning, Dorothy," Linda called out, already at her station. "You okay, honey?" "You look tired." "Just didn't sleep well," Dorothy said, forcing a smile. "You know how it is." "Oh, I do. My Harold snoring could wake the dead. 47 years of that racket." Linda laughed, adjusting her vest. "But what can you do? That's marriage." Dorothy nodded, clocking in. 8 hours on her feet ahead. 8 hours of, "Did you find everything?" and "Have a blessed day." 8 hours to plan what came next. As she took her position at Register 3, the receipts safe in her pocket, Dorothy felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not happiness exactly. Not yet. But purpose, direction, power. Carl thought he was clever. Brittany thought she was untouchable. They were both wrong. 10 days had passed since Dorothy found the receipts. 10 days of watching, documenting, pretending. She'd become an actress in her own life, serving dinner with a smile, asking about Carl's doctor appointments, complimenting Brittany's new clothes, all while the evidence mounted in a manila folder hidden behind the washing machine. More receipts, ATM withdrawals, a credit card statement showing a charge at Victoria's Secret, $236.45. Carl buying lingerie while Dorothy wore underwear from the Walmart clearance rack, 3 pairs for $10, elastic shot to hell. It was a Friday afternoon, and Dorothy had taken a rare sick day. Not sick in body, but sick in spirit, sick of pretending. She sat in her Honda outside Chase Bank, watching the parking lot. Carl's truck was at Steve's auto shop, supposedly helping with inventory, but Dorothy had called Steve's wife, Martha, pretending to look for Carl. Martha said Steve was in Birmingham at a parts auction, had been all week. At 2:17 p.m., Carl's truck pulled into the bank lot. Brittany was with him, laughing at something on her phone. They didn't notice Dorothy's Honda 3 rows back, partially hidden behind a pickup. Carl moved pretty well for someone with debilitating back pain, Dorothy noted, helped Brittany out of the truck, hand lingering on her waist. They went into the bank together. Dorothy followed, slipping in behind a group of construction workers. She pretended to study the deposit slips while Carl and Brittany waited in line. She could hear Brittany's giggle, see Carl's hand on the small of her back. In public, in broad daylight. The audacity of it made Dorothy's vision blur with rage. "I need to add someone to my account," Carl told the teller, loud enough for Dorothy to hear. "My niece here, she's been helping with my medical expenses, and it would be easier if she could make deposits directly." The teller, a young black woman with kind eyes, smiled. "Of course, Mr. Brennan. We'll need both of you to fill out these forms." Dorothy's hands shook as she filled out a withdrawal slip she didn't need. Carl was adding Brittany to his account. Their account technically, though Dorothy's name wasn't on it. Carl had always handled the finances. "Don't worry your pretty head about it," he'd say, and she'd been grateful not to deal with the stress of their barely balanced budget. She watched them sign papers, Brittany's hand on Carl's shoulder, leaning close enough that her breast brushed his arm. The teller had to notice. Everyone had to notice. But nobody said anything. Just another May-December couple in Alabama. Nothing unusual. Nothing wrong. Dorothy left before they finished, driving home with tears streaming down her face. Not sad tears, furious tears, the kind that burned. Back at the trailer, she went straight to their bedroom, to Carl's side of the closet. Behind his work boots was a lockbox where he kept important papers. The key was in his dresser, under his socks. Dorothy had never looked before, never had reason to. Inside, their marriage certificate, Carl's disability award letter, insurance papers, and underneath it all, a will. New, dated 2 weeks ago. Leaving everything to my beloved niece, Brittany Lynn Walker, who has shown me more care and kindness than anyone. Dorothy sank onto the bed, papers scattered around her. He was planning to leave her with nothing. Worse than nothing, she'd be responsible for his debts, the trailer mortgage, the credit card she didn't even know about until she'd started investigating. The front door opened. Dorothy quickly gathered the papers, shoving them back in the lockbox, but kept the will. She heard Brittany's voice. "I'm going to shower before class." Carl's footsteps headed to the living room. The TV clicked on. Fox News, volume 2 loud as always. Dorothy composed herself and walked out, the will hidden in her waistband under her shirt. "Feeling better?" Carl asked without looking at her. "Martha Stevens said you called looking for me earlier." So Martha had told him. "Of course. I was wondering if you wanted me to pick up anything from the store," Dorothy lied smoothly. She was getting good at lying. "Since I was homesick." "We're good." His eyes stayed on the TV. "Brittany and I grabbed lunch at that new Mexican place. You'd hate it. Too spicy." Brittany emerged from her room in a towel, heading to the bathroom. "Oh, hi, Aunt Dot. Feeling better?" She didn't wait for an answer, closing the bathroom door. The shower started. Dorothy stood there, looking at her husband of 28 years, his profile in the afternoon light, the way his jowls had developed, the turkey neck, the bald spot he tried to cover with creative combing. This was what Brittany wanted? This old, broken-down trucker with a bad back and a mean streak? Number. Brittany wanted the money, the security, the trailer that would be hers when Carl died, the disability checks, the life insurance Dorothy didn't know about until yesterday. A $50,000 policy Carl had taken out through some veterans organization. Beneficiary, Brittany Lynn Walker. "I'm going to start dinner," Dorothy said. "Make something Brittany likes," Carl said. "She's been stressed about her exams." Dorothy went to the kitchen and pulled out ingredients for spaghetti, Brittany's favorite. She filled the pot with water, set it to boil, and then reached under the sink for the cleaning supplies. Behind the Drano and the Ajax, a small bottle of ipecac syrup she'd bought at 3 different pharmacies over the past week, paying cash each time. Just a few drops caused nausea and vomiting. Not enough to kill, just enough to make someone miserable. She held the bottle, considering, then put it back. Not yet. She had more planning to do. Her phone buzzed. A text from her sister Maggie. "Appointment moved up. Can you come to Nashville on Monday? Doctor says we need to start treatment ASAP." Dorothy stared at the message. Monday. She'd need to call out of work, lose the day's pay, use gas money she didn't have, all while Carl and Brittany played house with money that should have gone to Maggie's treatment. That's when she decided. No more waiting, no more gathering evidence. It was time to act. She texted back, "I'll be there. Everything is going to be okay." Then she opened her laptop and started typing an email to Billy Brennan, Carl's brother, Brittany's father, the man with the shortest fuse in 3 counties. "Dear Billy," she began, "there's something you need to know about your daughter and your brother." She attached photos from her phone, Carl's truck at the Sunset Motel, Carl and Brittany at the bank, a screenshot of the Victoria's secret charge. She hesitated, then added one more thing, a photo of the will, highlighting the beneficiary line. But she didn't send it, not yet. First, she had other preparations to make. That evening, dinner was perfect. The spaghetti al dente, the garlic bread golden, even a salad with Brittany's favorite ranch dressing. Dorothy served them like a waitress in her own home, refilling drinks, clearing plates. Neither Carl nor Brittany seemed to notice her unusual attentiveness. "This is delicious, Aunt Dot," Brittany said, twirling pasta on her fork. "You're such a good cook." "Carl's lucky to have you," she added, and the words hung in the air like a bad joke. "Yes," Dorothy said quietly. "He's very lucky." After dinner, while Carl dozed in his recliner and Brittany studied in her room, Dorothy went to the garage. Carl's toolbox sat on the workbench, covered in dust. He hadn't done real work in years, but he kept his tools like trophies. She found what she was looking for, a small digital recorder he'd used for notes when he was still trucking. The battery was dead, but she had AAS in her emergency flashlight. Back inside, she slipped into Brittany's room while the girl was in the bathroom. The room smelled like perfume and sex, sheets that needed washing, clothes scattered on the floor. Dorothy planted the recorder under the dresser, voice activated, barely visible behind a fallen hair tie. Saturday morning, Dorothy worked another double shift. 16 hours on her feet, each hour adding to her resolve. During her lunch break, she sat in her car and called the Alabama Department of Human Resources fraud hotline. Anonymous, the recording promised. She reported Carl Brennan for disability fraud, working under the table at Steve's auto shop. She gave dates, times, amounts she'd overheard Carl mention, all the details they'd need to investigate. Then she called Brittany's beauty school, asked to speak to the director about a concern regarding a student's conduct. The director, Mrs. Patterson, listened carefully as Dorothy explained, anonymously of course, that she'd witnessed a student named Brittany Walker engaged in an inappropriate relationship that might reflect poorly on the school's reputation. "We take such matters very seriously," Mrs. Patterson said coldly. "We'll look into this immediately." Dorothy's final call was to their insurance company. She inquired about adding herself as a beneficiary to Carl's life insurance policy. The representative was helpful until she looked up the account. I'm sorry, Mrs. Brennan, but you're not listed as a spouse on this policy. Mr. Brennan would need to add you himself. But I'm his wife. We've been married 28 years. I understand, ma'am, but the policyholder listed his marital status as single. Dorothy hung up, another piece of the puzzle clicking into place. Carl had been planning this for months, maybe longer. That evening, she retrieved the recorder from Brittany's room, 2 hours of audio. She sat in her car in the Walmart parking lot, earbuds in, listening to her world crumble in digital clarity. Brittany on the phone. No, she has no idea. Yeah, Uncle Carl says she's too stupid to notice. The old cow works all the time anyway. Once we get married, the trailer's ours. He'll divorce her after his next disability review. Doesn't want to rock the boat before then. I know he's old, but he won't last forever, and then everything's mine. Dorothy had to stop the recording to vomit in the parking lot, retching until nothing came up but bile. The old cow. That's what she was to them. A stupid old cow. She drove home slowly, carefully, like she was transporting nitroglycerin. In a way, she was. Sunday was Brittany's day to visit friends in Mobile. She left early, kissing Carl goodbye at the door while Dorothy pretended to read her coupon circulars. As soon as Brittany's car disappeared, Dorothy put her plan into motion. Carl, we need to talk. He looked up from his phone, irritated. About what? About Maggie. Her cancer's getting worse. Treatment starts tomorrow in Nashville. That's too bad, he said, already looking back at his phone. I need $3,000. That got his attention. $3,000? Are you insane? Where would we get $3,000? From the account you just added Brittany to. From the credit cards you've been hiding. From the life insurance policy where you listed yourself as single. Carl's face went through several colors. White, red, purple. You been spying on me? Like you've been faithful to me? Dorothy pulled out the receipts, the photos, the will, spread them on the coffee table like tarot cards revealing his future. Sunset Motel, Victoria's Secret, the will leaving everything to your beloved niece. Now, Dorothy, shut up. She'd never told him to shut up before. The words felt like power. I know everything. The beauty supplies, the bank account, the insurance fraud. Oh yes, Carl, listing yourself as single on an insurance policy when you're married? That's fraud. Carl stood, using his back pain as an excuse to move slowly, buying time to think. You don't understand. Brittany and I are fucking. Yes, Carl, I understand perfectly. Your 24-year-old niece, your brother's daughter. Dorothy remained seated, calm as a frozen lake. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to give me $5,000, cash, for Maggie's treatment. You're going to sign the trailer over to me, and you're going to tell Brittany to find somewhere else to live. Or what? Carl's hands clenched into fists. For a moment, Dorothy wondered if he'd hit her. Almost hoped he would. The bruises would help in court. Or Billy gets these photos. The fraud hotline gets a detailed report about your under-the-table work. Brittany's school gets the recording of her discussing our sex life and calling me a cow. Oh, didn't know about the recorder? Voice-activated, Carl. Amazing what technology can do. She pulled out her phone, showed him the email to Billy, finger hovering over send. One tap, Carl. One tap, and your brother knows you're fucking his daughter. Carl sank back into his recliner, suddenly looking all of his 60 years. Billy would kill me. Probably. You wouldn't. You're not that kind of person, Dorothy. She laughed, harsh and bitter. I wasn't. But you know what? Working 50 hours a week for $11 an hour changes a person. Finding out your husband would rather fuck his niece than help your sister with cancer, that changes a person too. It's not like that with Brittany. I don't care what it's like. Dorothy stood, gathering her evidence. $5,000, the trailer, and she's gone. You have until tomorrow night to decide. She went to their bedroom, locking the door behind her. Through the thin walls, she could hear Carl on his phone, voice urgent and scared. Good. Let him panic. Let him scramble. An hour later, Brittany came home early, slamming through the front door. Dorothy heard their raised voices but couldn't make out the words. Then Brittany was pounding on the bedroom door. "Aunt Dot! Aunt Dorothy, please, we need to talk." Dorothy said nothing. "It's not what you think. Carl and we're in love. I know it's weird, but we couldn't help it. Please." Love. As if that justified anything, as if love paid for cancer treatment or erased 28 years of marriage. The pounding stopped. Whispers in the hall. Then Carl's voice. "Dorothy, come on. Be reasonable." She put on her headphones and listened to the recording again. The old cow. Every time she heard it, her resolve hardened a little more. Monday morning, she left before dawn, taking the recorder and all her evidence. The drive to Nashville was 3 hours of country music and calculation. 5,000 would get Maggie started, but she needed more. The trailer was worth maybe 30,000 if they sold it. Carl's truck, another 10. The disability back pay he'd have to repay when they caught him. That was his problem. Maggie was waiting at the clinic, thin and pale but smiling. "Dorothy, I can't believe you're here." "I'll always be here," Dorothy said, hugging her sister carefully. "And I have good news. I've got the money for your treatment." "How? I thought you said—" Carl had some saved. He wanted to help. The lie came easily. Maggie didn't need to know the truth. Nobody did. This was Dorothy's burden to carry. The oncologist was optimistic. With treatment, Maggie had a good chance. The first round would start next week. 3,000 down, payment plans for the rest. Dorothy signed papers, wrote a check she couldn't cover yet, and promised to return Friday with cash. On the drive home, she thought about her mother again, about patience and survival, about the different kinds of violence people do to each other. Carl and Brittany had killed something in her, trust, perhaps, or innocence. But they'd also freed her from the prison of being a good wife, a patient woman, a Christian lady who turned the other cheek. The trailer was dark when she got home after 10 that night. Carl's truck was gone, Brittany's car too. On the kitchen table, an envelope with her name on it. Inside, $3,000 in hundreds and a note. "This is all I can do. The trailer's yours. We're leaving. Don't contact us." See? 3,000, not 5. Of course he'd shortchange her even now. Dorothy sat at the kitchen table where she'd served thousands of meals, mended Carl's clothes, paid bills with money that was never enough. The silence was strange after years of TV noise and Carl's snoring. She counted the money again. 3,000. It would have to be enough for now. Tomorrow she'd figure out the rest. Selling Carl's things, getting a lawyer, filing for divorce. But tonight, she had one more thing to do. She opened her laptop and pulled up the email to Billy, deleted the measured, careful message she'd written, and typed a new one. "Your daughter is fucking your brother. Here's proof." She attached everything, photos, recordings, receipts. Then she added Billy's ex-wife, Sharon, to the recipient list. Sharon had always hated Carl, blamed him for Billy's drinking. She'd want to know what her daughter had become. At 11:47 p.m., Dorothy hit send. Then she went to the bathroom and found the bottle of Ipecac. Poured it down the sink, watching it swirl away. She didn't need it anymore. The truth was poison enough. Her phone buzzed. "Carl, please don't do anything crazy. We're at a motel in Mississippi. We'll figure out divorce papers later." Mississippi, running like thieves in the night, which Dorothy supposed they were. She didn't reply. Instead, she went to Brittany's abandoned room. The girl had left in a hurry, clothes still in the closet, makeup scattered on the dresser. Dorothy began packing it all in garbage bags. Tomorrow was trash day. Among Brittany's things, she found a journal. Recent entries gushing about Carl, about their future, about how easy it was to fool poor, pathetic Aunt Dorothy. Dorothy read every word, each one a small cut. Then she photographed every page. Evidence for the divorce. Evidence for the fraud investigation. Evidence that Dorothy Brennan was nobody's fool. 2 weeks had passed since Carl and Brittany fled to Mississippi. 2 weeks of silence, of Dorothy alone in the trailer, working her shifts at Walmart and coming home to blessed quiet. She'd filed for divorce, sold Carl's tools and truck to a dealer for $8,000 cash, and made the first payment for Maggie's treatment. The frost outside matched the ice in her heart, necessary cold that kept her moving forward. It was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving when everything exploded. Dorothy was restocking canned goods, the store buzzing with holiday shoppers, when her phone rang. Billy Brennan's number. She'd been expecting this call for 2 weeks. "Where are they?" His voice was whiskey rough and dangerous. "Mississippi, last I heard." "You knew? You knew what they were doing and you didn't tell me immediately?" Dorothy kept her voice steady. "I told you as soon as I had proof, Billy. Would you have believed me without it?" Silence. Then, "I'm going to kill him." "No, you're not." Dorothy checked that no customers were nearby. "You're going to be smart about this. Carl's already under investigation for disability fraud. Brittany's been expelled from beauty school. They're destroying themselves without you lifting a finger." "She's my daughter." "And he's your brother." "I know exactly how you feel, Billy, but prison won't solve anything." "Then what will?" Dorothy had been thinking about this moment, planning her words. "Thanksgiving dinner. My place. Tell Sharon to come too. We need to discuss the divorce proceedings and property division." "You want to have Thanksgiving dinner? Are you insane?" "I want witnesses," Dorothy said simply. "Neighbors who'll hear if voices get raised. I want this handled civilized, Billy. For all our sakes." Billy cursed, long and creative. "Fine, but if I see Carl?" "You won't. They're scared of you. They're hiding like the cowards they are." After Billy hung up, Dorothy returned to her work, mind calculating. She'd told Billy they were in Mississippi because that's what Carl had texted, but yesterday she'd seen a charge on their joint credit card, a charge Carl didn't know she could monitor online. A gas station in Mobile, Alabama, 40 miles away. They were coming back, probably for their things, maybe for the Thanksgiving holiday. Carl always loved her Thanksgiving dinner. Wednesday night, Dorothy prepared. She cooked as if her life depended on it. Turkey, dressing, green bean casserole, sweet potato pie, all of Carl's favorites. The smells filled the trailer, covering the lingering scent of betrayal. She set the table for 6, using her mother's good china, the stuff she only brought out for special occasions. At midnight, she heard it. Carl's truck pulling up quiet, engine cutting off early like he was trying to sneak. Dorothy stayed in her bedroom, listening, the spare key scraping in the lock. Whispers. "Just grab what we need and go," Carl's voice. "I want my makeup and jewelry," Brittany whined, "and my good clothes." 5 minutes. Dorothy waited until she heard them both inside, then slipped out her bedroom window, a trick she'd learned from Carl himself, back when they were young and sneaking around her daddy's rules. She crept to Carl's truck and let the air out of 2 tires, slow and quiet. Then she went to Brittany's car and did the same. Back through the window, back in bed, she texted Billy, "They're here. Thanksgiving is on." Thursday morning dawned cold and bright. Dorothy woke early, put on her best dress, the blue one she'd worn to her mother's funeral, and finished the cooking. The turkey was perfect, golden and glistening. The pies cooled on the counter. Everything ready for a proper family gathering. At 9 a.m., she knocked on Brittany's door. "Breakfast is ready." Rustling inside. Carl's voice panicked. "Dorothy? We thought you were at work?" "It's Thanksgiving, Carl. I took the day off. Come eat while it's hot." She returned to the kitchen, listening to their frantic whispers. They were trapped, and they knew it. 2 flat tires each, no spare that would work, and Dorothy standing between them and the door. They emerged slowly, Carl in yesterday's clothes, Brittany in a robe over her nightgown. They sat at the kitchen table like condemned prisoners. "Coffee?" Dorothy offered pleasantly. "Dorothy, we need to talk," Carl started. "After breakfast, we have guests coming." "Guests?" Brittany's voice pitched high. "Your parents, sweetie. They're driving up from Huntsville. Should be here by noon." Brittany went white. "My dad? You told my dad?" "Of course. It's Thanksgiving. Family should be together." Carl stood, chair scraping. "We're leaving." "With 8 flat tires between you? Good luck with that." Dorothy smiled, pouring coffee. "Eat something. You'll need your strength." "You slashed our tires? Let the air out." "Big difference, legally speaking." Dorothy set down plates of eggs and bacon. "Eat." They didn't eat. They sat frozen while Dorothy moved around the kitchen, humming hymns, the picture of domestic contentment. At 11:45, Billy's Ram 2500 roared into the driveway. Through the window, Dorothy could see Sharon in the passenger seat, Billy's new girlfriend Diane in the back. "I should mention," Dorothy said conversationally, "that Billy's been drinking since dawn. Dutch courage, I assume." The front door exploded open. Billy stood there, 6'3" of pure rage, face red as raw meat. His eyes found Carl immediately. "You son of a bitch!" Carl tried to run, didn't make it past the coffee table before Billy tackled him, both men crashing into Dorothy's good recliner, breaking it flat. Brittany screamed. Sharon rushed in, saw her daughter in a nightgown at 10 in the morning, and understood everything. "You little whore!" Sharon grabbed Brittany's hair, yanking her out of the chair. "Your uncle? Your uncle? Stop!" Brittany wailed. "We're in love!" The words hung in the air like a bad smell. Billy, who had Carl in a chokehold, actually paused. "Love?" "You're fucking your uncle and calling it love?" "He's not blood," Brittany sobbed. "He married into the family. It's not illegal. It's disgusting." Sharon slapped her daughter hard enough to echo. 24 years old, spreading your legs for a 60-year-old man. "He takes care of me." "With what money?" Dorothy interjected calmly. She was sitting at the table, eating sweet potato pie. "His disability check he gets fraudulently? The cash he stole from my savings? Or were you planning to wait until he died and collect the life insurance?" Billy's fist connected with Carl's jaw. The sound was wet, crunching. Blood splattered on Dorothy's clean floor. "Billy, not in my house," Dorothy said mildly. "Take it outside if you must." Billy dragged Carl to the door, Carl's hands clawing at Billy's arms. "Dorothy! Help me!" "Help you?" Dorothy laughed. "Like you helped me pay for Maggie's cancer treatment? Like you helped me through 3 miscarriages? Like you helped me work myself into the ground while you played house with a child?" "I'm not a child!" Brittany shrieked. Sharon slapped her again. "You're my child and you're dead to me now." Billy had Carl outside, fists flying. The neighbors were watching from their trailers, Mrs. Johnson with her phone out recording. Good. Evidence that Dorothy hadn't touched anyone. Diane, Billy's girlfriend, stood awkwardly by the door. "Should we call the police?" "In a minute," Dorothy said. "Let Billy get it out of his system first." Through the window, she watched Carl try to fight back, throwing a weak punch that Billy easily dodged. Billy responded with a knee to Carl's stomach that doubled him over, then an uppercut that sent Carl sprawling in the gravel. 28 years, Dorothy said to no one in particular. 28 years of marriage, and he threw it away for someone young enough to be his daughter. Brittany was sobbing, Sharon still gripping her hair. "Mom, please." "You don't understand." "I understand plenty. You're a gold-digging slut who seduced a married man. Your uncle, Brittany. What would your grandmother think? She's dead." "Lucky for her." Carl managed to get to his feet, nose bleeding freely. He tried to run for his truck, saw the flat tires, and Billy caught him again. This time, Billy's punch caught him in the lower back, right where Carl claimed his injury was. Carl screamed and dropped, writhing. "My back! My back! I'm injured!" "Now you really are," Billy spat. Dorothy stood, walked outside calmly. "Billy, that's enough. You've made your point." "I haven't even started." "Yes, you have, and Mrs. Johnson has recorded all of it." Dorothy nodded to their neighbor. "The police will be here soon. You should go." Billy looked at Carl writhing on the ground, then at Dorothy. "How did you stand it? How did you not kill him yourself?" "Because I'm not that kind of person," Dorothy said simply. I'm the kind who calls the fraud hotline, who provides evidence to divorce lawyers, who makes sure justice is served cold, not hot. Sheriff's deputies arrived, lights flashing. They took statements, looked at Carl's bloody face and genuine back injury, looked at Billy's bloody knuckles. But with Carl refusing to press charges, probably because he knew Billy would reveal everything, they just told Billy to leave. As Billy's truck pulled away, Sharon dragging Brittany by the arm, Dorothy went back inside. Carl was on her couch, holding a bag of frozen peas to his face. "Get out," she said quietly. "I can't drive." "My back. Call an ambulance. Call a friend. Call Brittany. I don't care. But you're not spending another night in my home." "Our home. Until the divorce is final." Dorothy pulled out her phone, showed him a recording she'd made of Billy's attack. Carl screaming about his back. "Your genuine back injury documented. The disability office will be very interested to see how well you were moving before Billy hurt you. And look, here's you lifting Brittany out of your truck at the bank. No back problems there." Carl's face, already pale from blood loss, went grayer. "You recorded everything. Everything, every lie, every betrayal, every piece of evidence I need to destroy you in court." Dorothy put her phone away. "The ambulance or walking? Choose." Carl chose walking. Limped out, genuinely hurt now, and Dorothy heard him on the phone begging someone named Mike for a ride. Brittany had vanished with her parents, probably halfway to Huntsville by now. Dorothy locked the door, turned off the lights, and sat at her Thanksgiving table alone. 6 place settings for a family that no longer existed. The turkey golden and untouched. All that food, all that work. She made herself a plate, turkey, dressing, green beans, everything. Ate slowly, methodically, tasting nothing but satisfaction. Tomorrow she'd pack up the leftovers, take them to Maggie in Nashville. Real family, not the fake kind held together by lies and convenience. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, probably Brittany's friend's phone. "You're evil. You destroyed everything." Dorothy typed back, "No, sweetie. I just turned on the lights. The roaches did the scattering all by themselves." Another text, from Carl this time. "I'll fight the divorce. You'll get nothing." Dorothy smiled. She'd already gotten what she needed: evidence, freedom, and the $8,000 from selling his truck. Let him fight. She had recordings of him admitting to the affair, photos of him at the motel, proof of his disability fraud. She had Brittany's journal, the credit card statements, the will he'd tried to hide. But more than that, she had something Carl would never understand: dignity. The dignity of walking away with her head high, of choosing justice over revenge, of being, as she'd told Billy, not that kind of person. Outside, the November wind picked up, rattling the trailer's thin walls. Dorothy washed the dishes, humming her mother's favorite hymn. Amazing Grace, about being lost and then found, about being blind and then seeing. She dried her hands, looking at them in the kitchen light. 58 years old, worn, calloused, but still capable, still strong. Tomorrow she'd work another shift at Walmart. Next week, she'd finalize the divorce papers. Next month, she'd sell the trailer and move closer to Maggie. But tonight, Thanksgiving night, she poured herself a glass of the wine she'd hidden for 10 years, a gift from her mother she'd been saving for a special occasion. She raised it to the empty room. "To the truth," she said aloud, "and to the women who survive it." The wine was sweet, with notes of blackberry and earth. It tasted like freedom. From outside, she heard sirens. Another ambulance, maybe for Carl's back, maybe for someone else's emergency. The trailer park was full of emergencies, big and small, people just trying to survive one day to the next. Dorothy turned off the kitchen light and headed to bed. In the morning, she'd strip Carl's and Brittany's rooms, donate everything to Goodwill. She'd steam clean the carpets, sage the corners like her grandmother used to do, clear out the bad energy. Her phone buzzed one more time. "Maggie. Heard what happened from Billy's Sharon. Are you okay?" Dorothy typed back, "Better than okay." "I'm free. See you tomorrow with leftovers and love." She set the phone aside and lay in the darkness of what was now her bedroom alone. No snoring, no weight shifting the mattress, no smell of another person's body. Just her, Dorothy Marie Brennan, soon to be Dorothy Marie Sullivan again. In the distance, she heard Carl's truck finally starting. Someone must have brought an air pump. Heard Brittany's car follow soon after. The sounds faded into the Alabama night, taking with them 28 years of Dorothy's life. But not her future. That, she thought, as sleep finally came, was entirely her own. The last thing she remembered thinking was about the turkey, still sitting on the counter. Tomorrow she'd make sandwiches. Turkey with cranberry sauce and mayo on white bread. Maggie's favorite. Something good salvaged from something ruined. That was what women like them did. They salvaged. They survived. They made sandwiches from the wreckage and called it Thanksgiving.